Consultants all over the globe struggle to bring consistency through their accounts receivable process. And the businesses who hire independent consultants and small consulting firms are risk adverse and looking for consultants that are compliant, not a liability. Welcome to the 50,000 Foot Consultant Pathway series. I'm your host, Trevor Poplar, and I guarantee that you will find listening to today's partner extremely relevant and one of the most discussed topics in the consulting industry: compliance, pre-screening, and payroll solutions. I recently sat with a large group of HR representatives who hire statement of talent representatives or consultants. And they stated that there's three major hurdles that they face when they are going through the hiring process. The major one that they face, or the number one hurdle that they see on a regular basis when hiring independent consultants, is risk and compliance. We at 50,000 Foot heard this group, we took their feedback, and for our members, we went and found a partner that did not just work with consultants, but who understood this concern and is working with us to address it. I'm excited today to introduce you to the Populus Group. Joe, if you would like to take this now, please take our listeners through so that they can understand the benefits that Populus can provide.
Great, thank you, Trevor. Really appreciate that introduction. And to all of you on the phone, I'm not sure if it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening, but we appreciate you making the time and showing the interest in listening to what we've got to say about our partnership and our offering with you all and 50,000 Foot. So as we work through the next slide, really just before we get started and before we introduce ourselves, I wanted to talk quickly about what does good look like coming out of this webinar. A couple of the things we hope you'll gather when you leave this webinar is, really simply put, understand the concerns and challenges that you face as an IC when it comes to being compliant and avoiding risk as you engage with your customers. And we want to give you some perspective on the risk and challenges that your clients are facing when considering using ICs to complete their business. We also want to give you an understanding of the benefits of our screening process, how that works, and then simply understanding what the process looks like, the time commitment it's going to take from you all, which is very minimal, I promise, and documentations and requirements that you'll need to provide as we work through the screening process, which again, very minimal. And lastly, if we don't, I'm sure you'll all have questions. If there's something we don't address, which is expected, please reach out. Through the site, we've got ways to get in touch with us, and we will respond accordingly and quickly to those questions. All right, Rosemarie, you want to start us off from an introduction standpoint?
Sure. My name is Rosemarie, and I'm excited to have an opportunity to speak and work with each of you in the future. My goal in our presentation today is to help you understand the importance and benefits to you becoming a pre-certified independent contractor and what that process would entail. For now, I'll pass it over to my teammate, Kayla, for her to say hello.
Hi everyone, my name is Kayla Higa. If you decide to move forward with our services, I will be partnering with Rosemarie also during this process and will be your point of contact through it.
Thanks, Kayla. And this is Joe Tabola. I'm a senior sales executive with Populus Group, and really my role focuses on managing some of our key channel partnerships, as well as dealing with some of our key direct customers when it comes to risk and compliance. So I've worked with Trevor, Bilal, and the team with 50,000 Foot now for a few months in developing this partnership, and we're excited that we're here moving forward. As we go through the presentation and this pre-screening services that we're going to talk about, most of you all will work with Kayla and Rosemarie and that team through that process. Should there be a need to introduce us to your customers as agent of record, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well and what that means, that's where I'll get back involved and work with you to talk with your customers and develop the right solutions to fill that gap. All right, so as we dive into this, a little bit about Populus Group. We're essentially an employment solutions company. So we work with our customers to help them deal with complexities that arise in contingent workforces. And most of those complexities essentially come about because of risk and compliance concerns with a contingent labor force. So as you can see, we've been in business for 18 plus years. And most of that time, we've focused our efforts on what we call pre-identified talent, which means independent contractors, W-2 contract employees, and foreign national contract employees that work on contract with our clients. And again, how we support ICs and the other folks and our customers in that vein is really mitigating risk and eliminating complexities. For you all, we're hoping that our solution helps you build the ideal business structure for your IC business. Lastly, one thing to point out, we're privately held and we're a minority and veteran-owned business, certified minority and veteran-owned, which as we talk about potentially engaging with your customer as agent of record, as kind of to close the gap on the pre-screening side of things, should that become an issue, us being minority owned and veteran owned sometimes is a big differentiator for you as an IC, because most customers are trying to fill a gap. They have supplier diversity initiatives and goals, and they're usually trying to find creative ways to fill those goals, to meet those goals and initiatives. So by introducing us in that way, sometimes it's a big differentiator for you as an IC. All right, I think we'll dive into the solution. So when we talk about overcoming barriers in the world of being an IC, we know there are many. So what we wanted to do here is kind of highlight a few of the barriers we see as the IC, both the IC and the client face, and then talk about how we see Populus Group bridging that gap. So from a barrier standpoint, we break the barriers down into a couple of areas. And the main one is risk and compliance. So ICs know that they need to be compliant to go out and perform work, but what may be understood is companies are generally hesitant and sometimes avoiding using ICs due to risk around misclassification. I don't say that to scare anybody. I say that just because it's a reality. A lot of the work we do is on the client side of things as agent of record. In that agent of record relationship, we're essentially working with customers to ensure that they are being compliant and then making sure that the ICs they engage are compliant when they come in the door to work on a project. So we see this a lot, and companies that don't have the ability or don't have a partner engaged as that agent of record, or don't have an internal counsel that's focused on keeping up with legislation and laws that are changing, they generally don't know what they don't know, and they're afraid to engage ICs. And so we as a company provide a solution, and to you as the IC, we hope to provide a solution to overcome that risk and overcome that hurdle, because the fact of the matter is they need your talent and they need your abilities to be successful in their world. So here's how we see Populus Group bridging that gap. With this pre-vetting solution that we're going to talk about, in the simplest form, we're going to provide you peace of mind to go out and hunt for business, knowing that you're qualified and that you're compliant, and that you're not bringing risk upon yourselves. It also allows you the ability to communicate that with your customers, that you are compliant, and allowing them to breathe a little bit easier and engage you a little bit more quickly. Now, should we engage on the agent of record side, we're taking that a step further, and then we're vetting you against the actual piece of work that they would like you to do. And assuming that's all compliant, then we're indemnifying the customer for the entire engagement. So again, cost avoidance becomes huge. You all know that you're covered from a risk standpoint, compliance standpoint, and aren't going to be subject to any costs or penalties down the line. Allows you to start assignments faster. And then lastly, from a financial standpoint, as that agent of record, we're able to help you manage the payment processing. So we can step in and take control of the billing, invoicing, accounts payable, accounts receivable, collections, and get you paid in a timely fashion. And then throughout the process, hopefully we're educating and consultating on both the client and the IC side to make everybody's lives a bit easier. As we move into the next slide, just wanted to highlight some of the challenges that we see. And again, this will be a little bit of a repeat, but we want to reemphasize because they're important, and then tie those to some solutions. So again, we see the challenges mainly in two buckets. Number one, non-compliance. You know, the IC usually lacks the just experience to know when they're compliant, when they're not. So we're hoping our pre-vetting solution brings you one of two things. Number one, we run you through the process and you're good and you're compliant and you can rest easy at night. Number two, if not, we're helping you identify those gaps so that you can be compliant and let you know what you need to do to be compliant. Secondly, around compliance, it's on the client side. Like I mentioned, generally they don't know what they don't know. So they know they're at risk. They know, they understand that the IRS and Department of Labor has an increased view, and they're putting more time and effort into finding misclassified ICs. And they know they're potentially at risk financially if they engage those ICs. So our solution will help them rest easy as well and help them know what they don't know. And then on the financial side, again, assuming we engage on the customer side of things, post your pre-vetting, then we'll handle that business management, billing, collections, accounts payable, accounts receivable, process adoption, etc. So from a solution standpoint, kind of how we tie the solutions to those challenges is the pre-vetting solution. Again, it's going to give you confidence to know that you're compliant, you've done what you need to do to make sure your business isn't at risk and you're not personally at risk. And then assuming we get engaged as agent of record, if your customer needs that, then we're doing the same on their side and indemnifying them against that piece of work that you're engaged on. And back to the business management piece, we kind of talked about that role. One thing, benefit that it brings to the IC is we do guarantee payment within 5 days of receiving payment if we're acting in that capacity. We also have a prepay payment or an early pay option as well that we can talk about and that we'll get into a little bit later. But ultimately, all of this is an effort to help you build your business the way you need to build it in order to be successful. Now over to Rosemary.
Thanks, Joe. So now let's emphasize on what Joe touched on about the concerns that your customers have these days engaging with independent contractors. Government agencies, included those mentioned here, and your state are joining task force against IC misclassification. While they typically do not go after actual 1099s like yourself, customers share with us that this definitely keeps them worried and hesitate about continuing to use independent contractors. So let's take a look at the next slide to see how your partnership with 50,000 Foot and Populus Group can help you prepare and ease those minds of your customers. How can we help you? In a moment, we'll walk through our pre-certified independent contractor process. After completing our screening process, you will have a tangible status that you can confidently share with your customers. You'll be able to sell your valuable services while your customers feel a release of comfort as they become indemnified to any IC misclassification risk. In combination with your 50,000 Foot membership and partnership with Populus Group, you will also open up a larger scope of prospects as you build your reputation as a certified independent contractor. This includes our clients with possible redeployment opportunities. Let's go to our next slide. This gives a glimpse of what to expect in our pre-certification process. Upon submitting your documentation, you will be verified and qualified for that pre-certified IC status. This allows us to create what we call a defense file, which is the backup to the indemnification you will be able to offer to your customers. Don't worry if you don't meet the criteria. We will provide an alternate option through our W-2 program to consider while guiding you how to work on your independent contractor status. You're probably wondering at this point, what does it take for me to be a pre-certified independent contractor for this program? The next slide will give you a peek into our process. First, you will be introduced to a specific Populus Group representative who will be right by your side to help you throughout the whole process. Next, you will help us learn all about your business and services by completing an online questionnaire and submitting documentation to us for review. Next, and upon collection and review of those documents, you will be contacted right away to discuss our recommended classification. Last, and if we are able to pre-certify you as an independent contractor, next is just informing us when you have been offered a project by one of your customers. At that point, we can help you with your contracts and payments process. Next slide. These are also the things you will be able to take advantage after you have already started a project with us. You can rely on us to stand by your certification by being reevaluated for each project we partner together on. Throughout your certification, you can also rely on us to help you maintain valid documentation. Something we haven't touched on is what exactly Populus Group reviews and keeps in this defense file. So let's go to the next slide. And here you are. I know it can seem very overwhelming, but not to worry, there are just a few items we need to request of you. Items that you will already have when you structured your business, such as your client history, business licenses or registration, marketing examples, and such. Now the diagram on the right is all the work Populus Group will handle for you. We don't look at only one test or 20 questions. It's important you have a partner that stays up to date with all the laws that impact your classification. We also get to know you and your situations case by case. As we all know, IC classification is not black and white. Now I'll turn it over to Joe, who will wrap up your next steps.
Thanks, Rosemary. I appreciate that. So just to close things out, we wanted to highlight some of the benefits that our service provides and really kind of touch on both the benefits of the pre-screening and the benefits of the agent of record services should we get to that point. So on the pre-screening side, again, just re-emphasizing some of what we've already talked about. When we talk about increased speed of vendor setup, again, you being pre-certified allows your customers peace of mind, not only allows you peace of mind, but allows your customers peace of mind to know that they've done what they needed to do to make their client, their company safe, which means to you starting assignments fast. And then Rosemary touched on the defense file that we create as we're vetting you for compliance. So we'll have that tax defense file and that compliance classification file on record. So if anybody ever comes knocking at your door to try to catch you for being misclassified or thinking that you're not misclassified, we will have that defense file on hand to help you in that case. Again, leading to cost avoidance. Throughout the process, we're educating and consultating with you just to help you understand the nuances of what it takes to be a compliant IC. And on the client side, should we engage as an agent of record with any of your customers, some of the benefits you can expect to see there. So one human point of contact. This might not seem like a big deal, but from a customer experience and customer service standpoint, should we engage as agent of record, you'll have one person at PG that's working with you on the IC side, and that same person will be working with your customers on the billing, on the program engagement, payment terms, things like that, which just leads to a more seamless, better customer experience. Again, consulting and guidance to meet program requirements, and that's on the client side. When somebody has a workforce management program, they're generally going to have requirements that we need to meet as agent of record, and in turn you need to meet it as an IC. So we're helping guide through that process. We talked a little bit about payment terms, but this is important to point out. As agent of record, we're handling all the financial kind of accounts payable, accounts receivable, and we agreed to net 5 payment terms. So once we're paid, you're paid within 5 days. Now, if there's cash flow problems and you need to get paid earlier, we have some options there as well to pay you prior to us getting paid, which we can discuss. Network of partner organizations. What that means, we deal with a lot of ICs day to day and a lot of customers that utilize us as an agent of record. Because of that, we've got a lot of partners in our organization that provide services to ICs, which we will open up for you to have access to again, help you better manage your business. And lastly, Rosemary touched on this, but should there ever be a need for you to not be an IC, whether it's personal changes in your life, changes in your business, and you're not going to move forward as a 1099 or an IC, we have options to allow you to finish the work you're engaged on with your customer on a W-2 basis, if ever needed. Just to make sure you know, peace of mind that you'll be able to complete your project successfully if anything comes up from a compliance standpoint that we can't help you through as an IC. So that's it. So from a pricing standpoint, the pre-screening service we're offering at $7.99. That's a one-time fee. And for the first 50 to sign up, we're offering a 15% discount. So ends up saving you about $120 on the rescreening. And we'll do a rescreening annually. And really that's just to revet, make sure you're still current with all the things you need to be current with, revet against any changes in legislation and laws that may have come up throughout the year, and really just kind of make sure you're still compliant as an IC. One thing to note there, assuming if we are engaged with you as agent of record at your client where you're performing work, we'll be able to waive that rescreening fee because we will have been working with you to maintain compliance throughout against the SOWs that you're performing on. And I think that's it. Thank you all for taking the time to listen. I'm going to turn it back over to Trevor to close things out.
Thank you, team, for sharing this exciting information. As I watch and listen to the presentation, I think back to the discussions our team have at 50,000 foot and the thousands of consultants we talk to regularly. There is a number of items in here that is extremely relevant to running a sustainable practice. And so we're very excited and thankful that you've brought this process to our membership. A couple of quick follow-up questions just for the team, or just some clarifications. In terms of this service and being compliant, can you let our members and people joining us to listen in, is this a service that is provided in every state in the United States? Because that is important to consultants who may be working out of a state but participating in a different region throughout the United States.
Yes, we can offer this service in any state in the United States.
Wonderful. And that's great. And for our listeners and our members, with what's going on in today's world and the environment we're dealing with right now in 2020 going into 2021, it's important to be able to have a partner that will lower your risk and make you compliant no matter which state you may be working in, either virtually or live in person. The other question that I had in regards to making sure our members are aware, when they are participating and going through the pre-screening process, once they have selected the offer in the 50,000 foot HQ, they will then go through an automated process and either Rosemary will be connecting with them. Is that the process, so they are clear that if anything is missing, that they would have one of your team members reach out to them?
Yes, that's correct. At any point that we need some clarification, or if you even have questions for us to help guide you throughout the process, we will be available for you.
Wonderful. And that's amazing, and I appreciate it. As a member of the consultant community, it's always good to make sure we get clarity. So please reach out to the 50,000 foot team, or reach out to our partners at Populus, and we can direct you and help get the questions you're looking for. So just to finalize and finish off the presentation, again, thank you, Populus Group, for introducing this amazing offer to our community. 50,000 foot is continually committed to finding ways to support independent consultants throughout North America. You can find us at www.50000foot.com if you're not already a member. If you are a member, go to the HQ at 50,000 foot and see the see the Populus campaign right now. Thank you, and we'd like to see and connect with you in regards to how we can help you be compliant, help you with pre-screening, and give you the payroll and accounts receivable solutions that'll help your business now and in the future.